forecast said it would arrive Thursday. It arrived Wednesday, faster than predicted, stronger than expected, and the moment it hit Earth's magnetic field, it jumped straight past the minor storm category and triggered severe geomagnetic conditions, a G4 storm, before forecasters had even finished updating their alerts. That is what is happening right now. And it is exactly what makes this solar storm different from the ones that came before it this week. Not just because of its strength, but because of the specific combination of things that are all hitting Earth at the same time. A coronal mass ejection, a fast solar wind stream from a coronal hole, and a magnetic field orientation that opened Earth's defenses like a door. This video is going to take you through exactly what is happening, how it started, why it escalated faster than anyone predicted, what it is doing to Earth's systems right now, and what comes next. All of it is real. All of it is verified. Let's go. Let me start with what has been building for days. Because this storm did not come from nowhere. For the past week, Earth has been sitting in the path of a high-speed solar wind stream flowing from a coronal hole on the sun. Coronal holes are regions where the sun's magnetic field opens outward into space rather than looping back on itself. Through those openings, solar wind, the constant stream of charged particles flowing from the sun, escapes faster than normal. Speeds double, sometimes more. That fast solar wind stream hit Earth last weekend and produced several nights of geomagnetic storming. G1 and G2 levels, minor to moderate. Enough for auroras to appear across northern states and northern Europe. Enough for some GPS degradation and radio interference at high latitudes. Not catastrophic, but persistent. The B's component, the north-south orientation of the incoming magnetic field, which determines how much energy flows into Earth's magnetosphere, kept swinging southward, and every southward dip let more solar energy pour through. For 3 nights in a row, aurora watchers got a show. The sun was being active, but it felt manageable. Then on April 21st, something else happened. 2 solar prominences, massive arcs of plasma suspended above the sun's surface by magnetic fields, erupted almost simultaneously in nearly opposite directions. The NOAA GOES-19 satellite's SUVI instrument captured it in real time. 2 eruptions, same moment, opposite sides of the sun. One of them sent material broadly away from Earth. The other launched a coronal mass ejection, a CME, that coronagraph imagery from the SOHO spacecraft confirmed was heading toward Earth. Not a direct hit. A glancing blow was the forecast term. The bulk of the CME propagating slightly north of the Sun-Earth line. Arrival was estimated for Thursday, April 24th. Thursday. It arrived Wednesday afternoon. Earlier, faster, and at the moment of arrival the BZ, the critical magnetic field component, was pointing south. The door opened, the energy poured in, and the storm jumped. Here is why arriving early matters, and why it is not just a timing inconvenience. When forecasters issue a geomagnetic storm prediction with a specific arrival window, every system that needs to prepare does so around that window. Satellite operators schedule safe mode procedures. Power grid operators coordinate protective measures. Airlines plot reroutes away from polar regions where GPS degradation and radiation exposure is worse. High-frequency radio operators issue advisories to ships and aircraft. All of that preparation is time-sequenced. It happens before the storm, not during it. When a CME arrives earlier than forecast, those preparations may not be complete. A satellite that was supposed to enter safe mode at 3 a.m. Thursday gets hit at 8 p.m. Wednesday instead. A grid operator who had planned to reduce load on vulnerable transformers Wednesday night, so they would be in a protected state by Thursday impact, does not have the same window. A polar flight that was already in the air when the storm upgraded from G2 to G4 cannot simply turn around. CME arrivals are notoriously difficult to forecast. CNN. That is a direct quote from Space.com's coverage of this month's events. And it is true in a specific technical way that explains exactly what happened here. The speed you measure when a CME first erupts from the sun is a projected speed based on what coronagraphs can see. But coronagraphs only give two-dimensional information. The actual three-dimensional structure of the CME, how wide it is, how dense the core is, how much it has been accelerated or decelerated by the solar wind it is plowing through, cannot be fully measured until it gets much closer to Earth. There is also the phenomenon of CME cannibalism. When multiple CMEs travel in the same direction, a faster CME can catch up to a slower one and merge with it. The preceding CME clears the interplanetary space, allowing subsequent ones to propagate without significant deceleration. Fox News. The result is a combined structure that hits harder and arrives faster than either one alone would have. CMEs can propagate earthward faster than expected from their apparent propagation speed measured in coronagraphs. In such cases, the actual arrival time comes earlier than the estimated arrival time. Fox News. That is what happened this week. The coronal hole wind stream that had been battering Earth's magnetosphere for 3 days had already compressed and modified the space between Earth and the Sun. When the CME launched from the April 21st double prominence eruption, it moved through modified interplanetary space, partially cleared, partially accelerated. It arrived earlier, and it arrived into a magnetosphere that was already disturbed and partially depleted from 3 days of continuous high-speed wind. Stacking solar events is one of the things forecasters fear most, and this week delivered exactly that. Now let's talk about the BZ, because this one variable is the difference between a storm that is impressive and a storm that is dangerous. The interplanetary magnetic field, the sun's magnetic field carried outward by solar wind, has a north-south component called the BZ. When BZ points northward, it is aligned the same direction as Earth's magnetic field at the dayside boundary of the magnetosphere. The two fields push against each other. Earth's magnetic shield holds. Solar energy is largely deflected. The storm stays mild. When BZ points southward, the opposite happens. The incoming magnetic field is oriented opposite to Earth's dayside field. Magnetic reconnection occurs at the boundary. The fields merge. Earth's magnetic field largely opens the door CNN, and solar energy pours through efficiently. The storm intensifies rapidly. Even after a CME has arrived, forecasters won't fully understand its magnetic orientation until it's sampled in real time by solar wind monitoring spacecraft like Discover and ACE, positioned upstream of Earth. CNN. And upstream means about 1 million miles from Earth, which at CME speeds gives roughly 15 to 60 minutes of warning. Not hours, not days, minutes. When this CME arrived earlier than forecast on Wednesday, the BZ was immediately sampled by Discover. It was pointing south, strongly south, and it stayed there. Within minutes, the KP index, the global measure of geomagnetic disturbance, began climbing. G1, G2, G3, G4. Severe geomagnetic storm conditions confirmed at 2:38 p.m. Eastern Time on January 19th during the earlier major January storm this year. And this week's event followed the same rapid escalation pattern. G4 means voltage corrections required on power systems. Satellite navigation errors possible for hours. HF radio propagation severely disrupted. Auroras visible potentially as far south as Alabama and Northern California under clear skies. The grid operators, satellite companies, and aviation authorities that had been notified of a Thursday arrival were now responding to Wednesday evening conditions. The warning window collapsed. The response had to be faster. Let's talk about what actually happens to the systems we depend on during a G4 event. Because this is not abstract. GPS is the first thing most people notice. The geomagnetic storm compresses the magnetosphere on the day side of Earth and stretches it on the night side. This distortion drives currents through the ionosphere, the upper atmosphere layer that GPS signals travel through. Those currents change the density and structure of the ionosphere unpredictably. When charged particles flood the ionosphere, GPS signals can become distorted, affecting navigation systems used in aviation, maritime operations, agriculture, and location-based apps. Facebook. During the May 2024 storm, the strongest in over 2 decades before this year, GPS degradation caused an estimated $500 million loss to the U.S. agricultural industry alone. Tractors running on automated GPS guidance during planting season were navigating incorrectly. In a single storm, a single day, radio communication is hit simultaneously. High-frequency radio, the kind that bounces off the ionosphere to reach ships, aircraft, and emergency responders over long distances, becomes unreliable or entirely unusable on certain frequencies during severe storms. Pilots on polar routes where exposure is worst have to switch to frequencies less affected by the disturbance and may lose contact windows with ground stations. Satellites face a different problem. CMEs temporarily heat up Earth's upper atmosphere, causing it to swell and increase drag on some Earth-orbiting satellites, making them slow down and lose altitude. The Planetary Society. In February 2022, SpaceX launched 49 Starlink satellites directly into a geomagnetic storm. 40 of them re-entered the atmosphere and burned up because the increased atmospheric drag caused them to drop faster than their thrusters could compensate. 40 satellites, one storm. Power grids face the threat of geomagnetically induced currents, GICs. When the magnetic field around Earth fluctuates rapidly during a storm, it induces electrical currents in anything long and conductive at ground level, which means power transmission lines. As a geomagnetic storm impacts Earth's magnetic field, it generates potential differences across the surface because of variations in Earth's resistivity. GICs can severely affect grounded Y-connected transformers and autotransformers because of cumulative overheating effects on winding insulation. Texas Standard. The 1989 Quebec blackout happened in 92 seconds. 6 million people lost power. The storm responsible was a G5, one level above where we are now. The large transformers that failed in Quebec took months to replace. Modern power grids are larger, more interconnected, and carry higher loads than they did in 1989. Grid operators right now are managing reactive power, reducing load on vulnerable northern transmission lines, and watching their monitoring systems for the first signs of GIC-driven fluctuations. This is not panic. This is the standard protective response. And so far this week it has been working. Now here is the part that the title of this video is about. Why is this storm getting worse faster than expected? 3 reasons, all happening simultaneously. The first is the coronal hole wind stream. Earth has been inside this high-speed stream for nearly a week. A magnetosphere that has been continuously disturbed for several days is not starting from a neutral state. It is already partially compressed, already partially depleted in some regions, already running hotter than baseline. When a CME hits a pre-disturbed magnetosphere, the combined effect can be greater than the sum of the 2 individual events. The second is the early arrival. The CME arrived hours before the updated forecast window. Every hour of preparation time that was lost is a system somewhere that had less time to reach its protective configuration. That is real vulnerability, not hypothetical. The third is the southward BZ. This is the one that cannot be predicted until minutes before impact. The CME arrived fast. It arrived into a weakened magnetosphere, and its internal magnetic field was oriented in the worst possible direction, south. The door was open from the first moment of contact. All 3 conditions together. That is why the storm jumped to G4 so quickly. That is why it escalated faster than the models predicted. That is why forecasters are still watching AR 4419, the most magnetically complex active region currently on the Earth-facing disk, for any new eruptions that could produce a follow-up CME into the same disturbed interplanetary space. Because one more CME into this environment would not just add to the current storm, it could extend it. And the longer a severe geomagnetic storm runs, the more cumulative stress the infrastructure absorbs. Here is where things stand right now, today, April 24th, 2026. The glancing blow from the partial halo CME may arrive today, April 24th. Combined with any lingering coronal hole effects, this could lift conditions to unsettled or even active levels. Aulis. What began as a moderate weekend storm has become a week-long event with escalating conditions. The sun has not stopped. AR 4419 is still active. AR 4420 is newly numbered and being watched. The flare count over the past 24 hours jumped sharply. 13 C-class and 6 B-class flares in a single day from multiple active regions. NOAA's Space Weather Prediction Center is issuing updates. Satellite operators are in active management mode. Grid operators at high latitudes are watching their systems. For most people watching this video, the most visible effect will be auroras. If you are at mid to high latitudes in the northern hemisphere tonight, clear, dark skies, look north. The northern lights may be visible farther south than usual. That is the beautiful face of a storm that is also stressing systems invisibly above your head. The practical advice is straightforward. If you depend on GPS for critical operations, check your systems. If you are in aviation or maritime communications using HF radio, be aware of degraded conditions. If you are a ham radio operator or run any infrastructure that relies on magnetic field stability, monitor and protect. This storm is getting worse faster than expected because of a specific combination of factors that all aligned badly at the same time. It is not the worst storm in history. It is not a civilization-ending event. But it is a clear demonstration of what the sun is capable of during active phases, and we are in one. The sun is not done. If you want to keep following this as it develops, subscribe and hit the like button. When this storm ends and the next one starts, we will be here covering it the same way. Stay watching.